It's not been the happiest of years, really, has it? Let's get Graham Stringer's view. Graham, Labour MP for Blackley and Middleton South. Very good morning to you.
Morning.
Forgive us for being a bit whimsical there. I mean, we know it's a hard job. We know that it's difficult for everybody in politics, and it's not as easy as it looks. However, Keir Starmer has not exactly done himself any great favours this year, has he?
No. I think one of the things I don't do and won't do is argue with the facts. One can argue about what should be done, but it's not been a good year. This government is less popular than any previous government after 12 months. Yeah. And I think the reason for that is relatively simple, that there isn't a controlling mind of the government. Governing is difficult, and you have to sit down, work out what's the solution, and then go to your colleagues in Parliament, explain why difficult decisions have to be made, go to the electorate and say there's a tough time, we haven't got enough money, quite frankly, so we're going to take these decisions. And that hard work hasn't been done. There's been a sort of authoritarian flavour to some of the government. We've got to do this. You'll vote in the lobbies with us and the electorate will suck it up. And that's not a good look. No. And I think that's one of the reasons for unpopularity and mistakes.
Yeah, and do you think that's a function more of their inexperience? Because, you know, I've seen this kind of situation I often compare politics and the media in a similar kind of way, because they're kind of similar bedfellows in a way. You know, I've seen people coming into newspapers and trying to run them in a way which they're not used to being run, and inevitably the person who's come in ends up taking the fall, because, you know, there is a certain sort of way of things and there is a certain way that things should be done.
I agree with that. I think part of it is inexperience, and it's a tough job. What surprised me as a long-standing Labour MP is, after 14 years, how little detailed preparation there was in different departments, and how many of the cabinet ministers and the junior ministers came out with cliches and headlines rather than this is the detail of how we will improve the country, how we will improve the service. And that was quite shocking to me in a way. I was there at the start of the Blair government. And, I mean, the obvious example was Gordon Brown came in, steam coming out of his ears, and changed the whole relationship with the Bank of England and interest rates. He'd got a plan. And that was true of many of the departments. They'd sat down and worked out what they would and wouldn't do in opposition. It appeared we hadn't done that. So ministerial teams were going in there fresh, and that's a big mistake we're paying the price for.
Right, indeed. I mean, I pointed out in a piece that I wrote for The Sun this week that, you know, minus 54 is the approval rating for Keir Starmer right now after a year of his tenure. And when Tony Blair was in for the end of his first year, his approval rating was actually plus 34. So a big difference between the approaches of the Blair government and the Starmer government. And I want to say this as well about Tony Blair's government. He seemed to have a lot more sensible people around him than Keir Starmer does. I mean, when we were talking this week about what would happen if Rachel Reeves was given the heave-ho, you can't really think of anyone who could step in as Chancellor of the Exchequer who would have the requisite knowledge or the economic sort of expertise to do it.
There is no doubt that the Blair cabinet and the junior ministers, they not only had plans when they started, they were a talented lot. And Tony Blair actually had a spread of different political views in his cabinet. Yeah. He wasn't frightened of debate. I think a symbol of how Keir's gone wrong. He put in a lot of new MPs who had no experience of Parliament, they'd never been ministers before, and he promoted them over people who had worked hard on the front bench. And I think that was a mistake. And I think he for comfort, he wanted people around him he could either boss about or he agreed with. And you need debate within government. You need challenge. You need people to say, actually, that's not going to work, or the electorate don't like that. And that's led to, as I say, a flavour of authoritarianism.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, some of the accusations earlier this week about why the rebellion against the welfare bill was so big was that, you know, Keir Starmer doesn't spend much time talking to his MPs. He doesn't spend much time in the Commons tea room. He doesn't really do much in the division lobby. He's only voted, I think, 7 times. He doesn't spend a lot of time trying to engage in a way with ordinary Labour MPs. Is that a massive problem, do you think, for the party?
I think it is. Just stroking Labour MPs in terms of, particularly the new Labour MPs, who some have never met him, they want to go back to their Labour parties, their constituencies, and say, I said this to the Prime Minister, or he said that to me. That's just human nature. And that matters when things get tough and there are difficult decisions. But it's not just Keir. I'm going to go back to the Blair government. But in the first year, 2 years, you couldn't move in the tea room, the smoke room, on the terrace for cabinet ministers. You were falling over them right, left and centre. Whereas this time, one sees a lot less of all ministers. I switched on the television to watch the Parliament channel on a Thursday when I come back to the constituency early, and I didn't recognise the minister. I'd never seen her before anywhere. So I think that is a problem. You need to constantly mend the relationships between the front bench and backbenchers if you want to go through the harrowing process of taking decisions that have to be made that nobody wants to make.
If you were going to give this government currently a mark out of 10 for the first 12 months, what would it be?
Probably about 4.5 to 5. I mean, I'd like to say 10 out of 10, obviously, but there have been so many pretty fundamental mistakes. It's difficult to do that. But I don't want to just run down my own government. There have been some successes on transport, changes in buses. There is a move to improve the health service and try to sort that out. So there are some good news stories and some real improvements, but not enough.
Yeah, indeed. Graham, good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. Graham Stringer there, Labour MP for Blackley and Middleton South.